There you go.
All right, fantastic. All right, everybody, welcome to Career Conversations. My name is Richard Reda, and this is a program of the APH ConnectCenter and Career Connect. Today is the 11th of August, and welcome to our very first college conversations. Did I say career conversations? If I did, I apologize. College conversations. This is a first in a series, and we are really excited to be doing this. And our plan is to continue college conversations on a quarterly basis, a couple of times a year. Our next one will be is being scheduled for November of this year. We have, as we've developed college conversations, invited some of our Career Connect student advisors to be on the inaugural event. And I want to welcome all of them, and also Lisa Lloyd, who is a supporter of the APH ConnectCenter, a mom, and has been helping out behind the scenes. So a big thank you to you, Lisa. And what we've got planned for the next hour and a half is a couple of things. We've got 4 students, and these young adults are going to introduce themselves here in just a moment. And they're going to do introductions, and each of them has a question that they're going to ask, and then every one of them will answer that question. And questions for you in the audience, you are welcome to put those in the chat box. Katie will be putting some instructions in the chat box as well. We will be answering those questions at the end, in the last, let's say, half hour or 15 minutes of the webinar. So if you have questions, go ahead and put them in there. Unless it's something that's a clarification, expect your question to be answered towards the end of the college conversations. Like all of our webinars at the ConnectCenter, this is being recorded, and you will be able to watch it later on YouTube and share it with your friends. And the inception and the idea behind college conversations is really to help those students in high school prepare, plan, and get ready for college. I know 30 years ago, when I was preparing for college in high school, programs like this didn't exist, and I was very nervous, very apprehensive, and unsure if a blind person like myself should be going to college. And it took me a lot of talking to my friends to make that decision to go to college. But having a program like this for you high school students out there, for you parents, for supporters, teachers, community members, we're glad that you're here, and we welcome your feedback and questions throughout the webinar. Again, my name is Richard Reda. I am the digital content manager, and I'm really, really thrilled to be hosting and launching college conversations. I'm going to now hand it off to Lisa. Lisa, why don't you introduce yourself, and then I'll have our panelists get started.
Sure. My name is Lisa. I'm in Sunnyvale, California, and I am the parent of a child who's 15 who's blind due to LCA. I'm also visually impaired myself. I have RP, and I have a sincere interest and passion in careers and supporting students who are blind and visually impaired. I am also Caucasian, and I have curly hair, and I'm skinny, and I run around a lot.
Thank you, Lisa. Off to our panelists in the order that you all decided that you wanted to go. Let me leave Peyton.
Okay, that is me. I hope you guys can hear me. But thank you everyone for coming tonight. We're really excited to have you. My name is Peyton Poke. I am a Black female with short curly hair, a rising senior at UCLA, studying world arts and cultures with an emphasis in civil rights activism. So a lot of what I do is activism, whether that be sending messages about political, social, economic issues through art. That's a lot of where my study is focused. I am low vision, partially sighted, whatever floats your boat. Basically, that means that throughout the day, my eyesight fluctuates depending on exposure to the sun, or being that I am a student, how long am I staring at a screen? That can also affect my vision by the end of the day. With this said, I am a cane user and in the process of getting my very first guide dog. Yeah, so again, I'm Peyton, and I'm really excited to be here.
Hi, everyone. My name is Paige. I am a master's student at the University of North Florida studying healthcare administration. I did my undergrad in the same major. I am a short white female with reddish brown curly hair, and I am low vision, partially sighted. For me, the sun is usually the worst if I'm outside too long and the sun's too bright. I live in Jacksonville, Florida, so it's hot and sunny here all the time. And like Peyton said, my eyes too get tired and fatigued when I'm on the computer for too long, especially being a master's student, lots of projects. So.
Hi, my name is Marie. I am a white woman with brown curly hair. I just graduated from North Central College with my bachelor's degree in psychology, and I'm currently looking for a job in the psychology field as well as looking in the disability field because I'm very passionate about advocating for people with disabilities. A little bit about me, I have a guide dog named Raisin. He is a black lab and he's super helpful. I have no usable vision. I have my eye condition is LCA. And so he's very helpful during the day and night. And that is who I am. I'm glad that you guys all are here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Selene. I'm heading into my freshman year of college, so yay me. I will be attending Wesleyan University in Connecticut, and right now the plan is to pursue psychology as well. I am a Hispanic female with dark wavy hair, about mid-length, and my eye condition is also LCA, Leber congenital amaurosis, for those who may be confused about all the abbreviations. It's a genetic eye condition. I also have no usable vision. I have like light and shadow perception, meaning I can tell if it's light or dark, or if something's in front of me, just can't really see it. And yeah, that's about me.
I believe that's all our panelists. And Peyton, would you like to start us off with your first question?
Yeah, so the first thing we're going to talk about is choosing a major. How do I do this, and how do I know if the right path is the right path for me, for my career? The short answer is you don't. That's kind of just that's how life is. You know, life isn't in just one straight line. You're not going to know the exact trajectory of your life. You're not going to know the perfect path for your career. But if you take anything from this piece of our presentation, it will be these two questions. Okay, so when choosing your major, you can think about one. Sorry, I'm looking at my notes. So if I'm getting close to the screen, that's why. One, I want you to study what you want to study what you're passionate about. What do you love? What brings you joy and fulfillment? That's the first thing. And number two, what are you good at? Quick story time to kind of give you some background and help you really understand these points. When I first started college, again, I am a road arts and cultures major at UCLA. I came in as a biochemistry major, and this was due to the idea that I wanted to be in medicine. And the only reason I wanted to be in medicine was because I was in the hospital all the time growing up. And so I got a chance to shadow my doctors and see, you know, the day in the life of a nurse, basically. And so I thought to myself, I can do this. I can do medicine. Wouldn't it be so cool to say I am a proud, partially blind anesthesiologist? Sounds great, but it wasn't what was for me. So during COVID, I really took the time to ask myself these two questions. What are my passions? What do I love? And the second one was, what am I good at? Let's start with what I'm good at. So I am an avid entrepreneur. That is my thing. I love business. Ever since I was a child, being in Girl Scouts, selling cookies, in the hospital, I'd always come up with these different ideas to start these different businesses. And so entrepreneurship is definitely the route that I will be taking once upon graduation. And secondly, what am I good at? I love art. I love design. Growing up, I'd always design clothes and these full collections. I am an observer of art, all forms. However, when I started losing my eyesight, I think just kind of subconsciously, you know, with the idea of societal norms and standards, I put that on the back burner. And so again, during COVID, I really took that time to reflect on who I was and what I love, and that is fashion design. So after graduation, I will be going to grad school for my MBA in business and luxury and brand development to start my own fashion company. But that's just an idea of really using what you love and your passions to decipher what major you choose. And two other things that I want to touch on quickly before I kind of let the other girls give their input on this question as well is you can always double major. Okay, say you love psychology or sociology, you can definitely major in that. And maybe that's where you want your career to stand. However, you also love theater and you love drama and you love to perform. That can also be play into your, your college career. You can also participate in plays and musicals during college. And one thing to note is by double majoring or being focused in not only just one subject or career path can make you look a little bit more versatile compared to other, competitors or applicants when it comes to jobs and things like that. So a diverse background, I'm speaking really fast. A diverse background can also really give you a little bit of a head up when it comes to things like that. And lastly, what you get your bachelor's in is not what you necessarily have to go for your master's in as well. Again, I came in as a STEM major, but I'm now an art major. And that doesn't necessarily mean that I have to go to art school. I always have the choice to go to med school still. Of course, that's not the case for me because I don't want to do that, but it's always an option. You can get your master's, your doctorate in whatever you choose. Yeah, I feel like I spoke really fast, but I hope you guys took a lot from this piece.
So for me, when I went off to college and before that, I always knew that I was interested in the medical field. I have a lot of family members and close family friends who are in the medical field, whether it be nurses, doctors, therapists. I always knew that the medical field was something I was super interested in. When I was doing research on where I wanted to go to college, what I wanted to major in, I really wanted to go into genetics. So I've never had a diagnosis for my vision. And the reason that I wanted to go into genetics was because I wanted to help find my diagnosis, whether it be genetic or not. I always found genetics interesting. So I started off as a biology major. I got about 2 years into my major and realized it was just too hard. And as much as I loved the content that I was learning, it was just too rigorous and competitive. And I just wasn't loving it as much as I thought I was going to. So right before COVID, and I literally mean right before COVID started, I sat down and thought really long and hard about, what am I really interested in? What can I see myself doing for the rest of my life? And I did some aptitude testing at my college, and they told me that I scored really high in healthcare administration, which I had never heard of before. I didn't know what it was. I did some research and found out that it's basically, the business side of healthcare. I was always told as a kid that I was very bossy and I'd be a very good manager. So I found it really interesting that I could mix those two things together. So I took the leap of faith and changed my major, and there's nothing wrong with changing your major. I mean, you get halfway through, or maybe you get almost all the way through and you realize it's not what you love. You have to really sit down and think about, am I going to be happy doing this every day? Am I going to want to go to work every day? So it took a lot of, I kind of took a leap of faith and changed, but I honestly wouldn't change it because I love what I do now. And, like Peyton was saying, you really have to sit down and think about what you're good at and what you like. And if you can turn that into something you can do for the rest of your life that you'll love forever.
Awesome.
I actually went into college knowing that I wanted to help people. You know, since high school, I knew that I wanted a career in the future helping people. And so I chose psychology because I knew psychology was broad. And actually, when I entered college, I thought that I wanted to get my master's degree in vision rehab therapy, helping people who, you know, lose their vision as adults. But as I continued taking psychology classes and taking sociology classes, because I'm a sociology minor, I realized that whenever we talked about like diversity, equity, and inclusion on campus, and just diverse people, they never brought up the disability community. And so that just started making me passionate about sticking up for the community as a whole and shedding light on the struggles that people with disabilities face, as well as just how people with disabilities live their lives, and just emphasizing the fact that we are a minority group and we should be recognized as such. In fact, we are the most diverse minority group. And so just taking classes like that really opened my eyes to the disability community and made me passionate about working more broadly. And so that kind of led me to want a career in disability services and not just working with people who are blind or visually impaired. And so I guess in saying that, what I'm saying is, you can choose a major and realize later on that, you know, you want something more than that. You might not have to change your major if it's broad, but just simply going to college could open your eyes to something or a group of people that you didn't even know existed, talking to other people as well. I had so many mentors who have taught me more about disability studies and just made me more passionate about the disability community as a whole. And so just going to college and networking and talking to people and asking questions about, hey, what do you do? Really is helpful and is so beneficial. So although obviously choosing a major is important because that's your focus of study, it doesn't mean that that is what you'll go into after college. And it doesn't mean that you are stuck in that major.
Awesome answers. So I know for me as a freshman, you know, I'm starting in the fall, but I do want to share that it is okay to go into college undecided. You do not have to know your major from the jump. And I made that mistake of worrying about that senior year. I should have been worried about my scholarship applications and essay writing, but instead I was like, what do I want to do with my life? Please do not go into college feeling like you need to know exactly what you want to be or what you want to do, because as everyone has said, what you start off with may not be what you end up doing. And also, I just want to share a quick kind of story time that kind of helped me realize, wow, this really isn't as important as we really feel it is. I was looking on my college website at our staff profiles. So when the staff are listed on there, it shows what degree they have and what they work in. Let me just tell you that their degrees did not always match up with the fields they ended up with. So I just want to encourage anyone who is stressing about that to please not let that be the biggest deciding factor. Definitely think of, if you want a STEM degree, definitely look at a STEM college. If you want like an arts degree, definitely look at the type of college you want to go to. Don't go to a college that doesn't have the programs you're interested in. If you're interested in more than one thing, make sure your college has both of those so you have those options. But definitely don't feel pressured to know exactly what major or degree you want when you start off. That is not the goal, because you still have to take care of general ed requirements. But yeah, just as everyone has said, think about what you're interested in and go from there. Don't just pick something because everyone else is doing it or for the money or, you know, because that's what your family expects of you. I know that can be rough for some people, but just take that first year to explore, take care of gen ed requirements, make friends, fill out the campus. Do not stress about it going into it, but definitely pay attention to your interests, because that can be where your job lies.
Great feedback, and thank you, panelists. I believe we all shared out question number 1, and Paige, you're going to ask question number 2 in just a moment, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay, so before we do that, and this is Richard speaking with APH, I just want to remind everybody, welcome again if you're just joining us midstream to College Conversations. This is our first in a series, and we hope to do this quarterly. We've got 4 panelists. For those of you who have your hands raised, I'm actually going to lower them in just a second. After our panelists go through the next set of 3 questions, and we just talked about majors, we will do Q&A by way of the chat, and or if you really want to ask a question, we will unmute you. So hold on to those questions, put them in the chat if so you don't forget them. Otherwise, we will definitely get to you, and you will be heard. And this is a 90-minute webinar, so we're going to 30 minutes past the hour, the next hour. So plenty of time. Paige, the floor is yours.
So our next question, and it really stems off of a lot of what Selene just said in her answer to the first question, what colleges offer my major of choice? Because this is going to tell you a lot about, the next 4 years of your life. Once you've gotten to the point where you've found a major that you think would be enjoyable, you've found something that you think you might be good at, you have to start narrowing down the options. So looking at the colleges in your area, if that's something that you want, or maybe it's out of state, maybe it's in the same state, but in a different city, you have to look at the colleges that offer the major that you want. So for me, when I wanted to go into genetics, I knew that I could pretty much go anywhere because all I needed for my undergraduate degree was just a biology degree, and pretty much everywhere has that. So yours might be more specific. So you kind of have to look at the colleges, and there's a lot of things that also factor into choosing those colleges too. Whether that be, do I want to be close to home? Do I want to just completely move out of state across the country? Whatever you're most comfortable with, or, if you want to spread your wings and go across the country because the college that you want to go to is across the country, there's no shame in that. Something to look for, something that I looked for was, what's close to campus? Will I be able to go to the grocery store easily? Will I be able to get my medication easily? Looking at the surrounding areas, is it walkable? Is it not walkable? What is the atmosphere of the campus? Is it, super busy? If you don't like big crowds, you might want a smaller school. So there's a lot of things that go into choosing a college, but the first and main thing would be to obviously make sure that they have your major, and then all those little things help you tailor down that longer list as you go.
Yeah, so just kind of hopping off of what Paige was saying, this kind of flows into the first question as well. Choosing your major, making sure that the college that you choose has your major. Another question that you can ask yourself, or something that you can think about, is if there was nothing in the way of what I wanted to become. So that means tuition, disability, race, gender, all that kind of stuff. If none of that was in the way of becoming, let's say I wanted to be a scientist or an astronaut or an artist, what is that thing? And that can also help you determine what major you choose and what school you also want to look at as far as your career.
So this is Marie speaking. I want to tell you a little bit about my experience choosing a college and just accommodations. I had a fight with my parents. I want to start with saying that it was a fight because my parents are very overprotective, and they wanted me to stay close to home, and I wanted my independence. And so I know parents on here, you're probably worried about your child. You might be, just have some fear around that. But as someone who's blind, it was the best 4 years of my life to just get away and learn to be more independent. It was amazing. So I just want to preface by saying that. But as for other things like choosing a college that is best for me, I personally wanted to be far away from home, to where I had my independence and I didn't have my parents driving me to college. But I also wanted to be close enough to where if we had family events or if I just wanted to come home one weekend, it would be easy. So I went to a college 45 minutes from home. And when I was looking for colleges, I made sure to look for colleges like an hour, 45 minutes to an hour and a half away. And the first thing I did was I wanted to speak with my college's disability services because I knew that I would be interacting with them a lot. And so I went to several schools and toured, and some of the disability services were better than others. And I found a couple that I felt were very, very knowledgeable on disability services and, had the supports that I personally needed. So that was very important to me, just choosing a college that had the supports that I needed and also met my social needs, my academic needs, everything else, because those things are also just as important. And so once I narrowed down a couple that were like, okay, these have very good disability services, I was able to choose which one I felt was the best fit for me, which one was in an area that I liked. I was happy that my college was close to a downtown area because I was able to quickly walk over to a coffee shop or a restaurant. And so I think that choosing a college that meets your child or your accommodations as well as your social needs is just as important.
Awesome. Yeah. So for me, how I narrowed down choosing a college that would fit what majors I was interested in, I had to figure out what things I was interested in. As we discussed in the first question, what are my interests? And I do have a wide range. I love philosophy, psychology, music, journalism. And I was like, okay, I love way too many things. But once I narrowed it down, I had to realize, okay, most of these interests are kind of in the arts and humanities. So from there, I decided, okay, well, like if I'm into arts and humanities and things like that, then I'm not going to somewhere like MIT or Stanford, right? So definitely choose, there's so many different types of colleges, but when I was picking mine, I was like, okay, I need to focus on colleges that have liberal arts. And that means that they have kind of more languages, arts, history, majors like that. So that is where I was going to find the most flexibility in finding something that I was truly passionate about. And I just want to say that just because a college is a STEM college or an arts college does not mean that they don't have the other majors. So if you wanted to study theater as, I want to say it was Peyton maybe, or Paige, I can't remember which, but if you want to study theater, but you also wanted to do like neuroscience or something, it's possible to do that. But definitely look at what you're interested in, what colleges offer that. Definitely look at the type of college that you're going to. As I said, if you want to do an arts major or a STEM major, then you wouldn't go to a college that isn't really known for that. So definitely pay attention to that and make sure that whatever college you choose has all the programs you're interested in. You're like, oh, well, it only has 2 programs I'm interested in, but it's better for this reason. Really, it just comes down to what you value more, but major should definitely be at the top of that list. Even if you're not sure it's something you want to pursue, go to a college that has all the programs you're interested in, as well as disability services that will accommodate that. Because you could have the greatest college in the world with all the programs that you're interested in, but if there's no strong disability service support, that could be detrimental to how successful you'll be. So definitely major as well as disability services go hand in hand with that. So pay attention to that.
Fantastic. Am I correct? Did everyone go for that question?
Yes, sir.
All right. Wow. Good stuff. Again, if you're joining College Conversations, welcome. This is our first in a series, and we'd love to have your questions. Please put them in the chat or raise your hand. In about another 20 or so minutes, we'll get to the questions. I promise we will. We're here for another hour, and so hang in there with us. We've got some great panelists, as you can tell, Paige, Selene, Marie, and Peyton, and Lisa and I supporting the group. So who has the third question? Is it you, Marie? or is it Selene?
Yes, it is. It's me.
Oh, it is. Okay, I was right.
Great. So the third question is, what are my housing options? And so as college students, we oftentimes, depending on the school, start off in a dorm, whether that is, a dorm with a roommate or a single. And so just to talk about that initial dorm situation, for a lot of freshmen and sophomores, the dorm situation kind of depends on what you're looking for. Some people with visual impairments, I've heard, like to have a single because they have extra stuff or they have a service dog and they want that space to themselves. They want somewhere that they can fit all their stuff. And so sometimes the disability services coordinator will give them an empty double. That way, the other side of the room can be for, let's say, their service dog stuff or their big, large print books or their Braille technology or whatever that may be. And then some people prefer to have a roommate and share a double with a roommate. And that can be really good for building connections. When you first go away to college, you might not know anyone. And so at least you and your roommate have each other and can make friends together and have that person to share it with. So that can be really, really cool. And then I want to talk about upperclassmen, so juniors and seniors. Depending on the college, they might let juniors and seniors have the opportunity to have an on-campus apartment, or someone might choose to have an apartment off campus. I know for me, I chose to have an on-campus apartment my last 2 years, and it was amazing. There was more room for me, my guide dog, my Braille technology. It was really nice. And again, I shared that with 3 other people, but I had my single. I really liked having just my own space. My freshman year, I had a roommate and it was good. It was a good experience to meet people, but I like to have at least my own bedroom just for myself and my guide dog and my things. But that apartment style housing was really nice because I still lived with people and was able to have that connection. Another thing I wanted to mention about housing is, for me personally, I like housing that's in the center of campus. That's just close to everything. But obviously that depends on the person's needs and wants. I lived in a building that was down a hill one year, and it was awful because in the snow, it was just annoying for everyone, visually impaired or not, to just get up and down that hill. So I learned quickly that I like central campus where I could just be closer to everything. And that was really nice. I wanted to add another thing about choosing housing, but I can't remember. So I'm going to pass it on to the next person, and if I remember, I'll let you know.
Okay, so housing. I have my fair share of horror stories when it comes to rooming with someone, but I will say it all ended up being for the better because I learned that I also, like Marie, enjoy my space. By the way, this is Peyton. So my first year, I did have a roommate. I was very excited, except my visual needs were not accommodated. She left her stuff all over the floor, and I'm very tidy, and it was just not really, it wasn't the thing, wasn't for me personally. That being said, I did have to speak with housing, and actually for my school, I go to UCLA, it took a lot to get accommodated when it comes to housing. At my school, we don't have central housing, so where it's like close to pretty much everything. We have what's called the Hill, and that's where it's literally, it's Westwood is very hilly, and that's where all the dorming is, all the dining halls, all things like that. And then you have to go down the hill to get to campus. That personally for me was more convenient than being off campus in an apartment where I would have to kind of make a bit more, I'd have to try a bit harder to get to class, which is fine, except it's just easier for me getting food and things of that nature. That's why I chose to stay on campus all 4 years. And then I'll proceed with an apartment after I graduate. But yeah, so that's why I chose to stay on campus compared to just going off of campus. It's a bit more convenient for me. It's close to, work on campus, food, classes, everything. Also something to ask about when you're choosing your college and thinking about housing is if there is a paratransit system for students with disabilities, because there is one at my school, which takes you within a 5-mile radius of UCLA. And that can also be very helpful when it comes to getting your medicine, maybe at a pharmacy on campus. There's one on my campus, the nearby grocery store, things of that nature. So that's also been very helpful for me as well.
I just remembered what I wanted to add, I'm sorry, before Paige goes, and it was about elevators. Technically, buildings, according to the ADA, should have elevators, but not all of them do. And so I think it's important to know, just to check and make sure that your building does have an elevator, because it makes it easy, and does have Braille or large print or both signage, because that is also very important. And if it doesn't have an elevator, I mean, me personally, my freshman year, it didn't have an elevator and I just lived on the first floor, so it wasn't an issue. But I just think that's very important to check before choosing a place to live.
So for me, like Marie, I chose a college about 45 minutes from home. My parents were ready to get me out of the house and I was ready to leave. So it was a mutual decision, and we always knew that I was going to have to live on campus. My city is pretty large and we're split between 3 different counties. So transportation in the most of the city doesn't run to the area that my parents lived in. So I knew I was going to have to live on campus, which I was totally fine with. My freshman and sophomore year, I lived in like a 2-person dorm style. And my freshman year, just by luck, I was completely by myself, which I really enjoyed, having all that space to myself. I'm an only child, so I'm used to being by myself. My sophomore year, I lived in a 2-bedroom or a 1-bedroom, 2-person kind of apartment. We shared a bedroom, but there was like a kitchen and a living room that we also shared that were separated from the bedroom. I think finding roommates for me personally has always been very hard. I tend to butt heads with people that I live with that closely. So if you're more social than me, I definitely say that roommates are a great way to make new friends, make new connections. And then like Marie was also saying, upperclassmen usually have the option to do an apartment. So my junior year, I did a on-campus apartment, which I really enjoyed, having my own room, having my own bathroom, but still being able to, hang out with my roommate and have people over. And then my senior year, I lived at home. And that was just because my classes were online and there was no need for me to be on campus. Being on campus was extremely convenient before the pandemic, especially when all of the classes were in person. Getting to class, my campus is a pretty small campus. Everything is encapsulated in like an oval shape. So there's one street that goes around the outside of campus, and everything, including the dorms and all of the classroom buildings, are all within that oval. So it was really easy to walk everywhere. There was no cars, no traffic that I had to worry about. And everything, from one end of campus to the other was maybe a 15-minute walk. So made it really easy. I worked on campus my freshman through junior year. And I really enjoyed it. I think that it brings you closer to the atmosphere of the college because you're there all the time. You're able to meet more people at the dining halls that live in your dorm, your roommates. I think it just gives more of a social aspect. So I definitely recommend living on campus if you can. It obviously is costly sometimes depending on your options, but I personally loved living on campus.
Great. So even though I, again, have not lived on campus yet, I want to talk about my experience looking for my housing options, as I've literally just been put through the ringer of the application process, and housing was definitely something I looked into. I am totally blind, pretty much. So I knew that if I went to a college, I needed to live on campus. I could live off campus if there was good public transportation, but I knew that I wanted to be in a smaller campus/city. So I was like, okay, everything needs to be walkable. and I need to live on campus because I cannot live off campus and get to college comfortably and in a way that it won't affect me. So when I was looking for my college, I wanted to make sure they had residential living, really good ones. So my college is one that I chose. You start off in a dorm your freshman year. The second year can be program housing, which is like where they have themed housing. Third year, you can get apartment. And then by the time you get to your senior year, you can have like this wood frame or high rise or low rise apartment / house, which is really good for me because I haven't lived independently before. So I need a slow transition to independent living. And my college was the one that I chose was perfect for that. So definitely think about what you want in housing. Do you want to live on campus? Do you want to live off campus later in your college years? Are you living close to home? Because if so, then you can save yourself a lot of money. But personally, for me, I wanted a bit more independence. I'm literally moving like almost 20 hours across the country in just a few weeks, which is terrifying to think about. But one of the things I loved about my college that drew me to them, disability services. Literally the day after I got accepted to that college, they emailed me to schedule a meeting about my accommodations. And one of those accommodations was housing. I was basically guaranteed a single, even though it's not really supposed to be for students. But they really worked with me. And even this morning, we had a bit of a thing where the building where I wanted to live was not going to work for me. And disability services worked with residential life to come up with something for me. They explained it. They were like, look, I know you want a single in this building, but you have to cross like 2 or 3 streets to get to everything on campus. And there's no audible crosswalks like the talking ones. So it just won't be convenient for you, especially at night. That could be dangerous for me. So they were like, we're still going to get you a single, but we're going to put you in a building where you're closer to campus. So when you're looking at your college, look at how they handle your situation. It's okay if you have to advocate. You have to advocate for yourself about what you need, but your college also has to be willing to work with you. And my college did that. So when you're looking for housing, think about what kind of housing you want. For me personally, I'm staying in a single this first semester, probably the first year, but I do want to work my way up to having a roommate and having my own space. So if you want like independent living, or you want to maybe live by yourself at first and then transition into having a roommate, make sure that your college is flexible with that and that they're willing to work with you.
I have to say, this is Richard. That's really proactive of your campus and really cool that they're working with you and not making putting up roadblocks. So good on that and good on your advocacy. Did everybody go for that question?
Yeah, I believe everyone answered that question. And something that Paige mentioned earlier when she was answering her question was that she worked on campus, which leads perfectly into our final question, which is, do I want to work while I'm in college? For me personally, I don't want to work my first year. I'm moving across the country. I've never lived alone before. My psych major has quite a bit of requirements, and I also want to balance a social life and also, you know, dealing with my disability. I just don't feel that would personally be the right choice for me. However, that really depends on how you feel, like, and everyone's financial situation. I'm very fortunate that I was able to receive a full ride through a third-party organization. So I don't have to worry about paying off my tuition. But if covering the cost of your tuition is something you're concerned about, then maybe you do need to work your first year. So really consider your financial situation, your social situation. Like, will you even be able to handle that? Not everybody can. And I know that a lot of people work while they're in college, but one way to really offset that, if you don't want to work like me, and that's not to say that don't work at all when you're in college, it's just for this first year while I transition, scholarships, scholarships, scholarships. Every dollar amount helps, even if it's just like 500 or 2,000. That's money you could be putting aside for, you know, expenses that you would be getting through different types of college work. So definitely think about, do you really need to, or can you get that money for your expenses through other places like scholarships or grants or things like that? Just whatever you're comfortable with. For me personally, I know my limits, and I can't balance working while I also study and balance the social life, deal with my disability, and also my stuff outside of college, like things like this, like Career Connect, Student Connect. I still want to be involved in that, and working just would not allow me that. But there are alternative ways to cover costs if you really need to. But definitely work is something to consider if you want job experience. But maybe in the first year, like me, it's not something you want to jump into right away.
I completely agree. Like Selene, my first year, I really, really wanted a job actually, but my mom did not want me to get a job because she wanted me to focus on my studies, and that was actually the best option for me because again, I dealt with a lot of mental health challenges, being that I wasn't in the right place at my first year. I wasn't happy with STEM, and so having a job was just not the best option for me. And I was fortunate, and I'm still blessed to not have had a job at this point, and I'm about to graduate this time next year. So like Selene said, scholarships are so crucial. They're going to help you a lot. They're going to give you the resources you need to make sure that you're not worrying so much about tuition and paying for housing, and you can be more focused on your social life and getting exposure to other things, clubs, groups like APH, things like this will be very important as well. So consider scholarships. And again, it's kind of on a personal basis. It depends on your financial circumstances and things of that nature, which can also play a role in choosing your college. That's it.
So as Selene and Peyton were mentioning, scholarships are very important. I also wanted to add in, depending on the jobs we're looking for, right? Like in college, depending on level of vision, certain jobs are just not feasible for us, like being a barista at Starbucks or, working at McDonald's, dealing with food. Not to say that nothing is feasible, but those part-time, restaurant jobs might not be feasible for someone depending on their level of vision. So I want to just encourage the idea that just because, you might not feel comfortable, let's say, with or unable, let's say, to work a job like that, doing internships and research, like being a research assistant with a professor, is just as important because to me, I looked at getting a quote unquote job, or for me, an internship, and getting a job as a research assistant part-time. I looked at that as a way to fill my resume, right? Because after college, jobs want to see that resume. Other internships want to see your resume. So I worked on building my resume, even if, because I'm completely blind, I can't work at Starbucks. I looked at filling my resume with the internship I did, the research that I did. I founded a campus organization and I was elected president. I filled it with that. I was a speaker in different classrooms for my college. I helped with a COVID-19 committee with college administrators. So just looking at things that you can do and using that to fill your resume, even if it's not the type of work that your sighted friends might be doing, like working at a Starbucks or McDonald's. I think just whatever you can do to fill that resume and show that you're here to get an education, but to also put yourself out there and branch out. And that also leads to connections, because oftentimes, for me personally, my research was related to what I'm interested in. And I made very good connections, and which helped me, now that I'm looking for a job, is helping me find people to write me letters of recommendation, just doing that research or that internship or founding that campus organization.
So for me, my senior year of high school, I got a job about halfway through, beginning of 2018. I was working at a local grocery store, and when I was accepted into college, I was supposed to be starting during the summer term. So all I had to do was I just transferred to a store right next to campus. It was really close, about a 5-minute drive. So that was really convenient for me during that summer. I was only taking 3 classes. They were in the morning. They were fairly easy classes. So it wasn't too stressful for me. And then my second job, which lasted from my first fall term of my freshman year all the way until the beginning of my junior year, it kind of just fell into my lap. I worked at the library on my university's campus, and I basically lived there already. I went there every day after class to study. I'd hang out with my friends there. It felt like the only place that I could get away from my roommates to be in a quiet place and study, even if I didn't need to study and I just wanted to get out of my dorm. So I got really comfortable being there, and I loved that job. It was very laid back and flexible with my class schedule. They were really accommodating when it came to finals week. They would they'd let us know, hey, we're open 24/7 during finals week, but if you guys need to take off for finals, we totally understand. If you want to pick up extra hours after your finals are over, we'll give you a little extra compensation. So they were extremely flexible, and I loved that job because it was on campus. I lived on campus. I could get up and walk to work in 5 minutes, and it didn't feel like an extra duty. It was very laid back and relaxed. I definitely recommend, if you're living on campus, to try and find either work study on campus or some kind of on-campus job, whether it be at your library or the student union, something that is interesting to you. And then my senior year, I started working in my field at an orthopedics office doing scheduling. And I quit that job right before graduation. And now I'm working my first post-grad job at a different rehabilitation office. So I've had a job all through college. It helped, my parents didn't help me financially at all. My tuition was paid for through the state. So the only thing that I was responsible for was, my transportation, my groceries, my medication, doctor's visits, that kind of thing. So it helped me learn how to manage my money, for sure. Helped me learn how to save, put money away. And working is not for everybody. I work and go to school full time. I don't recommend that for everyone. It's definitely a challenge, but I'm willing to do it. And I think that having work experience on your resume when you come out of college, whether, like Marie said, it be, getting active on campus and becoming, part of the executive board of a club or an organization on campus, is honestly just as good as having, a real full-time or part-time job off or on campus like I did.
Sorry, I was muted. Did everybody go?
Yes.
Were there
Yes,
okay.
everyone went.
I'm
Mhm.
being told, thank you, Dave. I guess somebody tried putting something in the chat. I'm told that the chat feature was disabled, so I apologize.
It might help, Richard. This is Katie. If people try to just close their chat windows and then reopen them. I know last night we had some issues, but it did resolve. We didn't have to do anything on our end, because I've been looking for, if something were to happen, but I'm not seeing anything. So
awesome, thanks. We can go with raised hands. Lisa, are you keeping tabs on that? Otherwise, let me go to the chat. There you go. Chat's working.
yeah, some people are getting chat. So just make sure that when you do put your message in chat, that you change your to everyone, so that we can all see your comments and questions.
All right, give me 1 second. Hey, Lisa, are you with me?
Yes, I am. I was just reading what was in chat. There was somebody who was hoping for ACV REP credit. They got in at 5 minutes in and didn't hear anything about an opening code.
Yeah, you can email us. We apologize. Some paperwork got lost in the shuffle, and we apologize for that. That's something we'll have to do next round. ConnectCenter at aph.org is where you can email us.
And for some reason, I can't see any other questions. I just see.
Do you see hands raised? We can take hands. We can allow people to speak. Oops, I don't want to do that.
I see, yes, hands raised. I see Samar, and I see Deborah and Jody.
All right. Do you want to allow, do you have permission to let them speak?
I believe I do. I just allowed Samar to speak. Can you unmute? Samar, are you able to unmute?
Okay, there we go. Hello.
Yes, we
Hi.
can hear you. Go ahead.
I'm good. I had a question. Does anyone know whether there are like colleges with credit like degrees for like online accessibility or something?
That's a good
So
question.
you want to know if there's colleges for online accessibility
Yeah.
certification? Any of our panelists have any thoughts on that?
Are you wanting to go to school online full time? Like you want to have classes online, or you want to get certification with online accessibility?
A college with online accessibility. I would like to do college in person.
Okay. I personally don't know of anything like that, but maybe the other women too.
I personally, this is, by the way, I know personally that depending on like the reason for wanting to do online, I know people who have spoken with disability services to get the opportunity to go online. And so depending on what the school uses for turning in assignments, reading your grades, whether or not that's accessible with the technology you use for your visual impairment, that could work. If not, also, I'm sure depending on the school, that the disability service student to come up with a way for the student to submit their assignment online. I school by school, whether that'll be an option.
That was helpful, but I was looking for a college that had a degree in online accessibility, but I think that going in person for college is a lot better. But I was just looking for a college that had a degree for going in a career as online.
It's an excellent
This is
question.
I wanted
recently
to
heard that 90% of online learning is inaccessible to the blind. So what you're asking is very much needed. I'm just not sure who offers it.
I have a suggestion. I'm not sure if you know any blind or visually impaired tech trainers. I know that I work with someone who's helping me with my online accessibility. You can speak to someone who actually has a career in that field and see where they went or how they got to where they are today.
Yes.
Do you have any recommendations for who I should approach?
Can you say your question? Repeat that again.
Do you have any recommendations on who I should approach?
I do. I was thinking Mina Sun at Berkeley. She would be a good contact for you. I'm not sure how you and I can connect, but
Why don't you email us? Because we do want to field some more questions, and it's a very good question, and thank you for asking that. You can email us at connectcenter@aph.org and reference this college conversations, and we'll make sure Lisa and I and others can get to you the information. And there is some information in the chat regarding Apple certification. And thank you. I'm sorry. Did you have a follow-up?
Yeah. So how what do you mean when you said reference this college conversations? You mean like in the subject or?
In the subject line that you had a follow-up question regarding online accessibility in college curriculum, and then it'll get to me from our folks.
Okay,
And
got it.
thank you for
Thanks.
participating.
Thanks.
You're
Mia.
welcome.
Lisa, who is next?
We have Jody Parkner. Please go
And-
ahead and unmute yourself.
And while you're doing that, Jody, folks, we're here for another 30 minutes, and then we do have a hard end at 30 minutes, but we're going to get to as many as possible. And to our panelists, if you want to start looking at the chat and want to address some of those questions when we're done with hands, get ready for that as well. Jody?
It's Justice. I don't know why my name is under Jody, but it's Justice, just so you guys know.
Sure.
Okay.
And my question was, what college was that I forget what speaker it was, but said that they said that you wanted a certain dorm and they were like, it's too far from the main campus for you. What college was that?
Selene, I believe that's you.
Hi. Yeah, that was me. So that college, and I will type it in chat in case you want to look into it. It's called Wesleyan University, and it is in Middletown, Connecticut. And one of the reasons I was so drawn to them was that they were very willing to work with me. Not even a day after I was accepted, I'm like, I just got accepted a day ago, and you're already on top of this. And even now, they've continued to work with me through everything. So, you know, I was told that when you go into college, you're going to have to tell them every little thing that you have to advocate for because you have to like spell it out for them. But really, it's just finding a college and how those staff interact with you. And so I'm really grateful that they did that for me because I did see my assignment a few weeks ago and it was that dorm that I wanted and I was really happy. However, I have total blindness. So I can't look at a map and go, oh, that's like 2 or 3 streets away and it's not accessible for me. I can't look at a map and see that. But I'm lucky that my staff at that college were able to pick that up and they were like, you're totally blind. I don't recommend you crossing 2 or 3 streets if you're coming home, to your dorm at 1 a.m. after studying. You might not be the most alert and that could be dangerous for you. So let's put you in a building closer to campus where you'll still have a single. Like they made sure I was still accommodated. I need a single for all my Perkins Brailler and all my materials for accessibility, but it's still close to campus so that it won't be a dangerous situation for me. But I will type the name of that university in chat. Really, it's just, and it's not going to be every university. It's just one of the things that really drew me because accessibility is the most important, especially for BVI students.
And did that answer your question?
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Thank you. I know we got some good things going on in the chat, so I want to get to that. Lisa, other hands that have been up?
Yes, we have Allison Lawani.
All right.
Can you go ahead and unmute yourself?
Sorry, I think that was an error. I didn't have a question or a comment.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Well, thank you for listening.
How about Angeline? Go ahead and unmute, Angeline. Angeline, are you there?
You should have a dialog box to unmute. If not, we can come back to you. I saw Natalie had her hand up at one point.
Oh, okay. I also see Anya is on.
Anya?
Sorry. Yes, I'm on here. I don't have any questions though.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks for listening.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Any other hands?
I don't see any other hands.
Okay.
Just those three.
Oh, wait, now it's my JAWS is telling me 3 participants, but my JAWS has been delayed. So
I can't really read the chat, but maybe there's a lot of in my chat that I see. There's the red bubble with the number up. I don't know if there's any questions. Can we go over those?
yeah, you want to field some of those questions? I'm sorry, was that you, Paige, that you had?
That was Peyton.
That was
Peyton.
Peyton.
Somebody else in the background was going to say something too.
There's also
Yeah.
a comment here.
Hearing people on my voiceover has been reading out. Oh yeah, just check the chat.
There is someone who says you all sound academically successful. Can you talk about any social barriers you may have faced?
Good question. Who wants to take that?
I can take that. This is Marie. So thank you, first of all. As for social barriers, for the most part, I want to add before I mention this that I think going to college, people are a lot more understanding about disability or want to be, because we're all adults now and people want to learn and get to know you more. So that's really good. But my freshman year, my roommate, it was a really bad experience. I think she took advantage of my blindness and crossed boundaries that we both agreed we wouldn't cross. And it was really hard. And I had to really talk to my disability services and eventually talk to higher ups because it was getting to the point where dangerous for me. She was being rude, respectful, and trying to put me in danger. And so we cleared that up very fast, but my solution for that would just be reaching out to the higher ups. And I also had friends who were supportive of me and were my eyes during that time and making sure that I was safe.
Thanks, Marie, for sharing.
Anyone else for any social barriers that you may have faced?
This is Peyton. I would say that if I did have any social barrier, it would have just been me coming from a very small high school, and then coming to UCLA, which was a big transition for me, socially mainly. So I think it was just kind of like all in my head, you know, I didn't really know anybody. I went from this social butterfly to very quiet, very shy. But once I kind of got past that and I made my little group of friends, I definitely broke out of that barrier that I built for myself. But that was also about just kind of comfortability at the campus, and how much I was being accommodated just in general at UCLA, which was also kind of weighed on that as well. But yeah.
All right. Yeah, anyone else? You all don't have to answer it, but if you want to talk about social barriers, and I know we've got about 20 minutes and a couple of other questions in the chat.
I have another one lined up.
Go ahead, Lisa.
How much time did your panelists spend finding and applying for scholarships?
Ooh,
I think
good
Selene
question.
might want to answer that one.
Yes, this is Selene. It really depends. The scholarship that I applied for, my full ride was gotten through an organization called QuestBridge, and what they do is they connect low-income students with scholarships. Their school, they don't give this, well, they do give this scholarship, but basically the schools decide if they accept you. So you don't get accepted through the organization, they just pay for your education. It depends on what scholarship you're going for. If you're going for a full ride like me, that application took weeks and months to do, but that's because there was multiple parts. And I know that sounds terrifying, like, oh my God, I've got to spend weeks and months doing it. But no, it's broken up so that you are allowed to work on it section by section. Like, I want to say when I started on my match application, which is what they call it, the National College Match, I started that process in like early September. And I finished in like mid-October. So it took me a month to complete that application. Finding scholarships, it's a lot faster than actually completing them. I will say that. And I will say my best tip for finding scholarships, there are scholarships for everything. There are scholarships for being BVI. If you're like me, you're Hispanic, there are scholarships for being Hispanic. There are scholarships for being a woman. There are scholarships for being left-handed, for goodness sake.
There are.
So really, there are scholarships for everything. So really just if you're like me and you have things that you can rely on, like, being Hispanic, look for scholarships where you are likely to get that. And then, so I would say target any scholarships that you may fit into, like music ones. Oh, I like music. I've did choir for years. Start with those that you can relate to, and then look for ones that are maybe like, $500, just write an essay, no really requirements. It takes a lot longer to complete scholarships than it does to find them, but definitely do it little by little. I don't recommend doing all of it at once. That's what makes it so overwhelming. So when you look for scholarships, definitely take your time with it, even just like 30 minutes or an hour a day, looking over the requirements. Or looking on Google for scholarships. Don't sit there all day like I did at one time, because I tend to overthink. But
Lots of free money.
Yeah, lots of free money.
Thanks, Selene. We're going to move on. Any other panelists want to address that? And then I see a hand raised. Paige, Peyton, Marie, scholarships, or are we good?
I don't. I'm good. Peyton, that's Peyton.
I was just going to say, sometimes you can utilize the same essay you used in one scholarship for another scholarship and save a little time.
Fred, I am allowing you to talk. You had your hand raised.
Hey there, good evening. Thanks for having me. My name is Fred Neuer. I run the pediatric low vision program at Children's Hospital, and I also work with the Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I wanted to say it's nice to see someone from UCLA on the call. I attended the East Coast version of UCLA Hunter College, which we called UCLA because it was a university on the corner of Lexington Avenue, so it's a little different. Anyway, I started my career at AFB. I'm sighted, by the way. I have monocular vision, but I consider myself fully sighted. A question came up in my professional circles about people with blindness and visual impairment in STEM fields, and it's really tough. It seems like everybody I know is in sort of social sciences, physical sciences, or law or stuff like that. So I just wanted to see if there was any, first of all, if anybody wanted to participate in research about STEM for people with blindness and visual impairment, certainly reach out. But I'm wondering what kind of barriers you guys had with STEM concepts. Because I know there's Braille and tactile graphics, but the question comes up like, how do you convey like a differential equation or a quadratic equation to someone who's blind? And as a sighted person and a philosophy major, I don't have insight into that.
I can touch on that.
Yeah, go ahead, Peyton. Yeah, and then we'll move on. Thanks, Fred. Good question.
Nice question, Fred. This is Peyton. So my first year being a biochemistry major, again, was very, very tough being a Black woman with a disability in STEM.
Yep.
It was hard to get accommodated. It took a lot of advocacy, but that's just something that I've kind of become very good at because I've had to do it so much. I would say labs were definitely a big thing for me because I had to be, if I wasn't being monitored to make sure that I was safe in a lab, I just couldn't participate because I wasn't really accommodated in that way. Also, when it comes to equations and things like that, there's a thing called Nimith, which is like the number version or and I'm not fully versed in Nimith, so you guys can jump on as well. But Nimith there is something like that kind of can accommodate, numbers and math in Braille to really help with that as well. Ladies, I don't know if that answered your question a little bit, maybe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Unless anyone else wants to take a stab, we'll move on to some more questions.
We have a question. Did you get assistance from the Disability Resource Center for getting internships? Paige, did you want to answer that?
Sure. I personally did not, and I regret not getting accommodations. I was extremely taken advantage of during my internship. It was a graduation requirement for my undergrad. And I was not only working at the company, but I was also interning at the company. They extremely took advantage of me. I got my specific school within the university involved and my professor involved, but I feel like I definitely should have gotten disability services involved, because the way that they took advantage of me severely affected my mental health. Not only that, but I was working at an orthopedics office where I was on the computer all day long, and it severely made me, like, my eyes fatigued all day. And I don't know, I guess I felt like there wasn't anything that they could do for me, but I definitely regret not getting accommodation.
This is Marie speaking. I kind of wanted to give my experience. I actually found my internship through a friend who completed that internship as well. She is sighted, but she told me about it and it seemed really cool. And it was at a mental health organization, and they were actually very accommodating towards me, and I didn't have to get disability services involved at all. I just was able to work with them and kind of, tell them what I needed, and they were very good at providing those accommodations, and it was a really good experience. So yeah, I just wanted to kind of add that other perspective.
Great. What else do we have in the chat, Lisa? We've got about 10 minutes.
Oh, good, because we have a lot more in there. We
Yep.
just told that Apple certifies people with blind visual impairments as trainers. So that's good to know for that question that came up earlier. We have another question. What was the biggest obstacle you faced in terms of accommodations and making work accessible? How did you overcome that? Excellent question.
I can answer that. This is Marie again. I think the biggest barrier for me was having to deal with faculty professors who weren't willing to follow the law and accommodate me. I learned very fast that I was the best advocate and that no one would advocate me better than I will. And I think that's very important takeaway. You're your best advocate. And so I often had to deal with professors who didn't want to follow my accommodation. And my disability services program was amazing. My first year, there was someone else there and she wasn't that great. So I was kind of on my own. And I had to tell them what the law was, the Americans with Disabilities Act. They can't discriminate against us due to our disability, and we have a right to an education. And so just reiterating that. But once my second, third, and fourth year, a new coordinator came in. She's great. Obviously, I was still my best advocate, and I did lay down the law, but it was nice to have that added support.
All right. Anyone else want to take that, or do we want to move on to the next question?
I think we have a lot of questions to get through.
We
Okay.
do. So we have another question. We seem to have trouble communicating with disability accessibility offices. Did you have trouble with that during your application process? And how was your application process? So I think, Selene, you are in a different category there.
Can I touch on that after Selene goes quickly?
Sure.
Okay.
Did you want to take that, Selene, or?
Oh, sorry, I know that Peyton wanted to, I think, what was it, speak or whatever. I just didn't know if she was gonna. As I mentioned earlier, it was really easy to get in contact with disability services. One of the things I appreciated about my college, and I realized that half of this panel has been me bragging on them, but I feel it's important to mention so that people know what to look for in their college, or what to ask for if the college doesn't give it to them. Most disability services have student interns. And one of the things that my college offered was like, we can talk all day about our services and what we offer while you're applying, but we want to connect you with a student intern so that you know what services we offer from the student perspective, and help from there. So it was fairly easy for me. I feel that I kind of lucked out, that is not the case for everyone. depending on the university you go to, you will either have to spell everything out for them. They will work with you and it will be collaborative like mine was, or you will have to kind of like push and prod them a little bit and they will, get you what you need. It just may take a bit of work. So it really just depends on what college you choose, how the staff are. But for me, it was fairly easy. You do not have to wait until you're accepted to contact disability services. In fact, I do not recommend that you do that. Look into disability services. Let that be one of the first things you look at when you're applying and try to reach out
Yes.
to them.
And Peyton, take it away.
Yeah, so I completely agree with that. Through the application process and choosing my school, that was one of the biggest, if not the biggest factors of deciding to come to UCLA. And I'm going to kind of put them on the spot. They definitely kind of painted this facade, and everything that, I thought I expected this institution to provide for me as a student with a disability was not, met. And so I definitely had to, that's where my advocacy skills definitely played a role, because it took so much to get, for me at least, I think the bare minimum, especially in the classroom, for as being accommodated as a student with disability. I can't speak for other disabilities, but especially people with visual impairments. I've spoken to 2 or 3 other friends, Giovanni, Richard, who has also spoken with me and helped me with that. But it's taken a lot to get just a little bit of help from UCLA. And being that I did come in as a STEM major, that was even harder for me. So nowadays, being that I'm about to graduate in, I am a rising senior, this is my last year. I find that I get my accommodation letter. We get an accommodation letter before each quarter begins. I print it out, and I meet with my professor one-on-one. And if they're not willing to really accommodate me, which at this point rarely happens because I do a lot of poking and prodding, and I definitely advocate for what I feel I deserve. But if that does happen, then that's when I will get disability services involved. And most of the time I kind of have to go to the higher up, and I'll skip my counselor to get to them, because that's just the kind of ropes I have to jump through at this point. But I will also say, while this is a pain, this should not be, the reality of things. However, you shouldn't, if it's that much, if you're willing to put up with all of it, the institute, how much it's notable and things like that, then if that's important to you, then I would just go through it, go through the movement. And that could help with, setting up more success for other students behind you, which I find a lot, is happening a lot with students coming in as freshmen. I've met 3 or 4 other visually impaired students, and they asked me for help, and I don't even know who these people are initially, but the disability services, they're called the Center for Accessible Education here at my school. They will actually send them to me, because they're not really, it's kind of like they're not really willing to help at this point. But we have a lot of questions, so I hope that answered it.
Thanks, Peyton. Yeah, we got time for maybe 1 or 2 quick questions. Lisa, I'll let you judge what best to pick that question or 2.
I think this is a wonderful question. So this is a TVI who works with high school students. And the person says, if you had a TVI that you worked with back in high school, what was most helpful and what was not? And secondly, what would you tell your high school self looking back at where you are now?
Oh, you got all night?
I know, right?
Ladies, who wants to take a quick stab, maybe 30-second soundbite, because we do want to get to a couple more.
I would
Oh, sorry. Did you want to go?
Okay. I did have a TBI in high school. I switched it back and forth a lot. We had a lot of turnover, but every single one of them was extremely helpful and wanted my goals to be met. So we always sat down at the beginning of the year, determined what was the best thing to work on for the year. And that's what we focused on. And something that I wish that I could tell my high school self is not to be afraid of the future and just let things happen naturally as they're going to, because as you grow and as you get older, your mentality changes and so does time. So just letting things happen naturally is the best way to do it.
Agreed. I'll go ahead and add on to this just a little bit, since I am a freshly graduated high school student. One of the most helpful things my TVI did was push me. And I know that it might be like, what do you mean push you? She pushed me to be independent, because prior to that, I really had no experience with that. Culturally, my parents have, it's not even just culturally, I think it's just parents in general tend to shelter their children. And my TVI had none of it. She pushed me to be independent, get organized, not procrastinate. She just pushed me to be a better, more independent person. And something I would tell my high school self is to not be afraid to try new things. The future, like, you know, I went through a lot of AP courses and classes I didn't even know I could take, just because I was so caught up in what if I can't do it? What if I'm not smart enough? And even now I struggle with those fears. What if I get to college and I'm just not strong enough to take it, you know? But definitely one of the things she helped me do was to not fear future. You will never know if you don't try. So if you think you want to do something but you're not sure, do it anyway, because it's better to have tried and failed than to regret not trying at all and wondering.
Lisa, we can maybe squeeze in one quick question, the last question.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting one. If you get a roommate and they are sighted and they have never connected with a blind person or interacted with them, and they don't want to, and you can tell that they don't want to, what should you do?
Oh God, that's happened one too many times. Those people, personally, and this is just how I feel in life, whether it be a roommate, a friend, a colleague, a teacher, whatever. People are only so willing to listen. And if they're not going to listen and absorb it and learn and not be ignorant after the fact, then there's no point in even speaking, number one. Second, I think just trying to educate in the nicest way possible, trying to explain what helps you, what doesn't help you. You know, like, I don't remember who was saying it. I think it was Marie, leaving stuff around on the floor and, you know, having that conversation multiple times and nothing being done about it. I've been through that too. You know, you have to communicate your boundaries and you have to communicate your needs. And if people aren't willing to meet those needs, no matter who it is, it's not even worth facilitating the conversation anymore. And it's time to kind of just move on.
A panelist, anyone else with a quick
I do.
Go ahead.
Peyton. This is Peyton. I would also say that you shouldn't let that discourage you in any way, because like Paige was saying, it's not just going to be a roommate, it's going to be your boss, it's going to be a coworker or a colleague, it's going to be family members sometimes. At the end of the day, just know your worth and do not let, like she said, ignorance, it may not even be ignorance. It may just be, you know, something they have inside of them where they see that you're so great and independent and doing the dang thing. Okay. Just do you, boo. That's what I kind of like to live by.
I like it. Yeah.
Do you, boo. And don't really focus on, it's going to be hard too, because there's so many voices around you and these stigmas and, you know, standards that society places on us. Just as humans, just make sure that you focus, you stay in your lane basically, and they'll see, oh, well, I'm not phasing them at all. Like what I'm doing isn't affecting them. So that may either open them up to learning more about our disability, or it'll, you know, kind of have them go the other way. And that's ultimately what we want, them to stop messing with us. So yeah.
This has been an amazing first launch, inaugural college conversations. Ladies, I can't thank you enough. I hope to have a few of you back for our second one, college conversations in November. Audience members, you guys likewise were outstanding with great questions, and we'll continue the conversation. Give us ideas on themes. Please email us ConnectCenter@aph.org if you want to get a hold of myself or any of the panelists or have ideas for college conversations. We also run career conversations where we do a very similar thing, and that'll be September 1st. If you've gotten registered, you'll get the email. Thank you, Lisa, for managing the questions, and Katie for behind the scenes. We can't do it alone. I can't multitask with Jaws. I know that. So Paige, Peyton, Marie, Selene, you guys rock. Thank you everyone for participating. Again, we do apologize for the digital ACV REP. We'll get that fixed next time. And you all have a great evening, and this will be archived and up on our YouTube page very shortly. Everyone have a great evening.
Thanks guys.